So let's talk about bits from protecting bits from people for just a minute. You have, the means of production in the hands of folks now. Easy to copy. Not much limitation to being able to distribute. And not as strong, probably, an ethos in the general population about copying and whether it's illegal or whether it's okay. Clearly not as restrictive with regard to whether or not copying and redistributing is against the law or, if you will, a really serious infraction. So, how do you keep people from taking bits? It's a copy machine. I know they called it a computer, but it's a copy machine. That's what it does by its very nature. I assume you're all familiar with the cache in your machine, right? Everybody knows there's cache copies. Every time you see a web page, for instance, there's a copy made. Every time your machine does a computation of some kind, it makes a copy in the memory buffer someplace, right? Technically, it's all illegal. Technically. In our country, there was legislation for a while. There was talk when the IP laws were being updated for the computer age that all of that caching would be counted as copying, and there would be a microcharge system that would be embedded in the computing system, so that every time you looked, for instance, at a web page, there'd be a little charge for that because it's a copyright infringement if you're copying it. So rather than ask for permission every time, which wouldn't be practical, they would just charge you every time. And then there'd be a little meter that would run. It'd be pay per click. Right? And as Congress debated this and almost put it into law, I mean, came real close. It had the last draft. It was in the last draft before they changed it, took it out of the DMCA. They said, oh, wait, that might slow things down. This digital revolution might not happen. We may not find out what's really going to happen if we charge people like that. So we're going to hold that in abeyance. Okay? But technically, it's still a case. It's a copyright violation when you look at stuff. And we really ought to be charging for it. Okay. So you have this device that is, by its very nature, supposed to make copies. It's very difficult to keep people from doing that. As generations change, the sort of connection to whether we ought to do that or not has been sort of disengaged a little bit. We're not accusing everybody young of being immoral, but there is a kind of disconnect in this culture between copying and plagiarism and remix that is a little bit different than what came before, or not. That is to say, there's no such thing as a new idea. Everything's built on ideas before. Right? Since printing, we've taken plagiarism really seriously. Before printing, folks built on each other's work, copied all the time. So we don't know whether it's sort of a new thing or an old thing, but we can't even protect our analog infrastructure. We've got vulnerable power stations and water supplies and gas supplies and all the rest. And trying to protect the digital infrastructure is even more challenging in some ways. So you face DRM all the time, digital rights management. You can't use something across platforms, or you can't use something across machines, or you can't use something at all because you haven't paid the right fee or you haven't signed up for the right thing. If you're a producer, you produce content, you distribute it. If you had a choice, you'd like to have everybody pay for every copy across every platform. So ought you be able to download a song, have it on your computer, have it on your iPod, have it on your phone, have it on your DVR device at home? Should you be able to put it on every device? Well, if you're a consumer, you think yes. Right? But from a producer's perspective, remember they went from vinyl to cassette to CDs. Right? They'd like you to pay every time you put a copy on something else. Okay? And so at the code level, you write code that protects that copying, and then get a law passed, Digital Rights or Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that says it's illegal to break the encryption. Right? And then all of a sudden you've got a regime where making a copy is not legal. So if you make a copy of a DVD as a backup at home, making the copies legal, breaking the DRM is illegal. Because the Digital Millennium Copyright Act says you can't circumvent copyright protections. So there's sort of a battle going on, right, between producers and users to control the use of media. And producers, professional producers, would like to keep control of that process. But since the means of production are widely distributed now, it's harder to do that. And so off we go. It's not easy.